That seems to be the last picture. Something that you told me when you came and talked to our science fiction group that I thought was do you operate only on children, or do you do any surgeries on adults?
We never do adults. Our feeling is we have a bigger impact in an underserved area by doing just children. And there have been some anecdotes in the past. Once in Guatemala on a trip I was not on, several adults came and tried to force their way in. And Greg Mencio, the guy in Vanderbilt, is very large, and he talked them out of forcing their way in. But we've never done any adults.
I just didn't know if, if some emergency came in while you were there, would you handle it? I guess you would.
We would.
You
yes,
would.
We would.
Special children. You're bound to get attached to special children. It's hard not to. And
yeah.
Do you have any particular child you'd like to tell us about, or?
Well, there are lots of special children, and probably if you asked any member of my team, they would have a different list of 5. But probably the one all of the team would name would be a guy named Wilmar Ortiz, and his family was from Colombia, where we used to go. And he had this hypophosphatemic rickets. He's the first kid that we did. And he, like I said, had never played sports. He'd never been able to run or jump or anything. And we did him one year. It was about a 6-hour operation. And he came back the next year with his Nike shorts on and the shoes we'd given him. And every year in Colombia, when we'd come, a lot of the children we'd operate on before came back to visit, and he would come every year, and he kind of became our poster child. Everybody has their picture with Wilmar, and he kind of became our special one. But there are lots of them. That's just the one that we would all mention.
You take your son. You have taken your son.
I've taken my sons and my daughter.
And when they're there, what do they do? I mean, do they just stay in a hotel and wait for you, or do they participate with you?
No, we have what we call 2 extras a year, 2 wild cards a year, and a lot of times it's somebody's child. And they have to be old enough to work, because a lot of times the hours will be 16, 18, and in Colombia we went 20 hours a number of days. And so they have to first off be old enough to have the stamina, and second off, if they're going to be there, they have to be working. Now, my daughter had much more of an interest in working with the kids pre-op and in the post-op recovery room area, and so she worked with those nurses. My first son really liked being in the operating room. He scrubbed in the operating room every day. And my third worked in the post-op clinic. So each one had kind of different interests.
The one that scrubbed, did you teach him on the spot, or did he have some sort of?
Well, as you know, it's not too hard. It's not too hard if someone shows you what to do to help in an operating room. There are always retractors to hold. And Greg Mencio, this friend of mine at Vanderbilt, who's the other person who runs it, he knows all our children well. So he had a good time operating with Greg, and Greg could kind of in a nice way teach him, which is easier than your dad teaching you.
I can imagine, or probably easier than the operating room, learning from there. Because you've had your children with you and they've participated, are any of them inclined toward a medical career or interested in any kind of mission work because of this? Or
I think all of my children are very interested in outreach, civic engagement. Our oldest, our daughter, works for a nonprofit in Charlotte. All of our kids have been big brothers, big sisters, those sorts of things. But nobody's interested in being a doctor. They just chose different avenues for the same ideas.
Probably because of the hours they see you working and that kind of thing. Can you think of anything else you'd like to tell us specific to these missions, these trips? Well, you obviously, what do you do in spare time, or do you have spare time?
We do. One of the neatest things about our team is that we've been together for so long that we're very close in terms of we're very efficient working together, but also we're very close personally. And being in the operating room together, for instance, we live all over the country, so we don't see each other, most of us, during the year. Being in the operating room together is just fun, kind of catching up. And so we spend a lot of time just being together. But we give all the nurses the second Saturday completely off. And Friday night we'll have kind of a team dinner, and we have a little series of awards and funny trip things. And then Saturday they have a whole day off. What's great about Mexico is it affords them a completely different opportunity. In Colombia, we had armed guards. We were behind barbed wire with machine guns. And so for an hour on Saturday, they'd take us down to this little jewelry store where they could buy a little something. But in Mexico, which is very, very safe, unlike what you might hear in the news, our nurses can go to these places called mercados, where there are lots of crafts made by the local people and the people from the outlying areas. Beautifully done, beautifully priced. So Saturday is a power shopping day for our staff, and they shop hard and have a good time. And Saturday night we could kind of get together for a final dinner, and we leave on Sunday.
So you actually operate all week long?
Yes.
And your day ends at about what time?
Well, because we have to get all the instruments tucked in and everything, the day usually doesn't end. It doesn't end before 9, usually 10, 10:30, and we start 6:30 or 7.
I imagine you have a terrific volume of
We
patients.
do. Well, and we last year we screened about 300 children. We operated on 100. We did 175 operations. One of the hardest parts is some of the children you screen, they don't need anything. Their feet are a little bit crooked, but it's within the realm of normal. But there certainly are children also we turn down, because the more you stay in one area, the more the word gets out and the more kids come. And we'll be stopped on the way to the hospital by a mother or father with their child who wants us to check them. And so as the week goes on, we always have too much work to do. So one of the hardest things is saying no to those kids.
I can imagine.
So we try to do as many as we possibly can, but then we set up a list for the next year. And if you were turned down that year but had something needed to be done, we'll do you top of the list the following year.
How does the word get out to the communities that you all are coming?
Well, we have enough friends down there that it's in the newspaper, it's on the radio, there's a local TV. But the funny thing is, when you first come to an area, if you're coming and you're doing things for free, people usually think you're no good. Oh. So you have to have a few people come back to the neighborhoods or the outlying villages and do well.
Your successes.
And then lots of people come in when the radio show comes out. The first year, we did a number of cases the first year, but probably only 90, because it takes a while for the people to know that they can trust you with their kids.
I just think that it's fascinating, and I admire you so much for your dedication to this, the things that you're doing for these children, and I know that you care about children. One more comment I wanted to make is, I know that when you work with the same team over and over and over again, you almost don't have to say anything, because you get used to working, you know what I need, I know what you need, and I would imagine that that's part of this.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for coming. I think that this has been so informative, and as I said, I do admire you for giving of your time and your talents to help these children. If you have any comments about this program, or if you have any suggestions for future programs, please send them to our email address, lynchburglivenow@aol.com. Have a wonderful evening. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be Dr. Fuller, who also is doing mission surgeries. That'll be the week after next. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.